Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and this is going to be a fun one because I have director and producer, and I happen to know, even though not in the credits of the film I know you for, but also a writer, screenwriter. I have Lindsay Harbert with me. Hey, Lindsay.
Hello, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, and I guess I'll share. So you directed the film Talia, and you co-produced it. Talia was at Filmvision Los Angeles last year, 2024, and I'm a huge fan of it.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if Amy shared with you more, but I love films about loss that come from the heart and are genuine, and that one absolutely is. It's such a great film. It took home the Programmer's Prize for Exceptional Filmmaking. And so, little golf clap.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's an award-winning film. And the cool thing was you were not able to travel for the festival in June, which is another thing that makes it cool. This podcast is fun for me because people I didn't get to meet at the festival, I get to talk to on the podcast. And then it's like we did a Q&A anyway.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was very, very pregnant. I was very pregnant in June. I had my second child June 29th. So I was large and not traveling at that point.
Well, major congratulations.
Thank you.
Two is twice as many as one.
It sure is. And you feel it when you have two, you know? Actually, I kind of take that back. Suddenly, parenting has become less serious with two. Like, I'm not worried about every little thing. Maybe I should be, but
No. That's why, well, I don't know where I'm about to ask for your life story, of course. But for some reason, I'm going to bring up birth order because I am a younger brother. And I think by the second one, parents have just kind of figured it out and they just worry less. They're like, oh yeah, we didn't kill the first one.
Yeah.
We're pretty sure we know how to keep the second one and the first one alive. And you just know you can do it. Totally.
And I think my biggest worry bringing another kid into the family was how it would affect my oldest. Because I have, again, let's just go into my whole life story, I guess. I have a somewhat complicated relationship with my siblings, being the youngest and the only girl. But luckily, our oldest, Lincoln, loves his little brother. Lincoln's 4, Monty is now 6 months old. And I hope they'll be best buddies and they can talk shit about my husband and I for the rest of their lives.
Exactly, because, yeah, that's almost enough years that the older one, Lincoln, you said, was ready for less parental attention.
Yeah. And the jealousy is not a thing. At least knock on all the wood, not yet. You know, he loves that there's a little baby around for him to tickle and make giggle.
Yeah. Whereas my niece tells me all the time that life would be better if there were no younger siblings. Yeah, they should not not
Right. Like, why did they do this?
Because 2 years isn't enough. Yeah, 2 years, You're like, no, I still needed sole attention.
Totally. And also, 2 years is still, in my mind, such a baby. Lincoln can, like, grab a diaper if I need him to. And we planned on a closer age gap. This is just how it worked out, and I'm happy that's how it did. Although my 39-year-old body is like, never again.
I'll try not to mention it too many times, but we've got a 17-year-old under our roof.
Oh.
Well, I don't even know what it's like to have a kid need attention.
Yeah. When was the last time you saw
most of our conversations are through a closed door. Which is not true. She's wonderful, and I guess we tend to just talk on drives to school. But.
Yeah. Everybody says it goes by so quickly, and before you know it, they're, going to be off to college.
Yeah. That's happened now. All the applications went in last month.
Oh, when she
actually, I think she got it done early enough. It was all done in November. So now we have to wait till March. But March is soon. So anyway,
it is. Yeah.
Here we are talking family stuff.
Families.
Talking film stuff. But maybe the family stuff informs your film work. I don't know.
It does, actually. So to kind of inform how Talia came to be, Amy and I met in 2000. I want to say 15, we worked on a show called Playing House. She was the assistant to the creators, Lennon Parham and Jessica St. Clair, and I was the script coordinator. And we spent many a long night, in the office and on set, and became fast friends because you met Amy. She is the salt of the earth. She's one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet. And as the years went by, I, was lucky enough to start writing full time. And she is an aspiring actress. She is an actress. She's not aspiring. She's a working actress. And we met for lunch somewhere towards the tail end of COVID, like really everything's opening up, and she wanted to have more stuff for her reel. She wanted to shoot more. And I was like, well, I've been wanting to direct a short. And so I wrote the first short that I directed, which was called Playdate. And it's about a couple that survives the apocalypse and is afraid that their son is going to end up being a lonely weirdo because he doesn't have any friends. So they leave their bunker to find him a playdate. And Amy was the mom in that. And Lincoln that was his first acting role, and hopefully only acting role. No shade to actors. I just know how hard it is, and I don't want him to be an actor or a writer for that matter. I want him to be a dentist.
I think the best thing is to discourage it or not, or just not encourage it. Then if they do it on their own, great.
Totally.
And you can have that. I've had that conversation with kids in the family where they say, I think I want to be an actor. I'm like, are you prepared to wait tables for 15, 20 years?
For a very long time.
And if it doesn't happen, you'll be okay with it. And they're like, of course. And I'd be like, well, then do it.
Yeah.
But be aware, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass and tell you, I loved you in that high school production of Grease. I've seen that. I don't know why they always do Grease in high school.
I don't know.
Got an abortion in it.
Right?
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, you'll discourage Lincoln if you have to, but
yeah. And if that's what he decides to do, obviously we'll be his biggest cheerleader. But if he loves the dental arts, we're gonna be an even bigger cheerleader for that. But after we shot Playdate, about a year later, Amy had met this other writer named Joe. And they started workshopping the script for Talia. And, obviously we all kind of developed it together. And Talia is based on the loss of Amy's best friend that she lost her best friend their junior year of college. Her name was Talia. She seemed like, a wonderful person who spread joy to a lot of people. And it's a really important story that Amy wanted to tell. And I'm a comedy writer and director, so it was a challenge for me to direct something that is so emotional. But it was also interesting because, with grief, there's nothing like the laughter that comes from grief. When you're at a funeral and you're telling stories about the person who passed away. So that's sometimes the hardest you're going to laugh in your life because, comedy and tragedy are two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. So, it was a challenge, but it was one that I was really honored to take. And I think we're all really happy with how it turned out.
Absolutely. No. And you're proving that maxim that comedy people can do drama no problem. They can let their serious side out no problem. But people who are serious all the time when they try to be funny
doesn't translate. Yeah.
Right? I didn't do the I normally do in the preamble I warn everyone listening that we're on Zoom. I think they can figure out you're in New Jersey, I'm in California. So
yes.
No one got to see the face you pulled when I talked about drama people trying to be funny. But we've all, well, those of us in the arts with every once in a while, a dead serious friend gets cast in like a comedy play or something, and you go watch them, and you're like, you can't teach that timing.
You can't. You really can't. And it kind of baffles me that more comedic performances aren't acknowledged very often, at least award wise, because comedy is so hard, you know. I recently watched Wicked, which I thought was fine. I'm a big fan of the Broadway show. I didn't lose my mind over it over like a lot of my friends did. But I will say Ariana Grande is funny. She is funny. She nails that so hard. And if they had cast the wrong person in that role, who is an insanely good singer, and like a great theater performer, I don't think they would have gotten such a great performance, you know?
I'm sure. I'm sure. All right, so
Yeah.
that's how Talia came together. But
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about Talia more when we get to it in your personal bio. But now take me back. Uh, where'd you grow up? When did you first get interested? Were you a creative kid?
Mm-hmm.
And just go ahead and explain to me how a nice Midwestern human being ends up in LA working for TV.
Well, I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, to a very not creative family. Very sports heavy. I was definitely an outlier in wanting to be a performer, which was my first love. I wanted to do theater, and that was highly discouraged.
Like as a kid,
And
like in elementary school, even?
yeah. Like I had a friend, my friend Lydia, who I'm still in contact with. She was in a production of The Hobbit. And I remember her telling me about this was probably when we were 8 or 9 years old and they got to have furry feet. And I was like, I want to be in The Hobbit. I want to do that. I want to have furry feet. And I told my parents and they said, absolutely not. You're not doing that. We're not, we're not doing theater. And then when I got to high school, I started doing high school theater and then I got my license and I started doing community theater in the city. Definitely I become very focused on things. I got very, very focused on theater for the entirety of my high school career, And then I graduated and nobody could tell me nothing. So I did not want to go to college for a theater degree because I was like, I'm just going to move to LA and be a star. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work like that. Eventually, I did go to Ball State for a semester, which is a state school. And then I dropped out after I got on the improv team there and drank that Kool-Aid hard and steady and decided I was going to either move to Chicago or Los Angeles to be an improviser. Then I decided it was going to be Los Angeles because I was done with Midwestern winters. And I saved up $2,000, loaded up my Honda Civic, and drove out to LA without knowing anyone or how the industry worked or how I was going to survive. $2,000 was a lot of money to me.
And was that the classic move where you didn't even have like an apartment lined up?
I did not have an apartment lined up. I had met this guy named Josh, not my husband, Josh. That is also my husband's name, at the Indianapolis Fringe Festival the year prior. And he lived in LA. And I was like, when I decided I was going to move to LA, I messaged him on Facebook and said, I'm going to move to LA. And he's like, great, you can crash on my couch for a little while. So I did, but then Josh tried to make out with me and I was like, oh no. So yeah, my mission to find an apartment was sped up. And I ended up renting a small little shoebox apartment that was built into the garage of a lovely gay couple in Inglewood for $500 a month. And I stayed there for 4 months before I moved in with a boyfriend much too quickly. And all the while, I'm just doing improv and living my best life and drinking way too much.
I almost wanted to joke that earlier, Josh, overstepping a line, that was another introduction to the entertainment world.
1,000%. 1,000%.
I wish I wasn't joking about men overstepping the line, but I'll help you out.
Uh-huh.
Oh, here's what I wanted in return, by the way.
Yep. And I was like, oh shoot. I really misjudged this person. But I was so naive. I was just like, he's my friend. We're gonna we're gonna take LA together. We're a couple of Midwesterners. He was from Minnesota. I was from Indiana. Um, yeah, but he was not on the buddy train.
Gotcha. And let me
Yeah.
ask, because I know you ended up somewhat focused on screenwriting,
Yes.
and you just talked about performance so far. As a younger person, were you into writing, or did that come? Actually, that didn't happen. It was truly solely performance based.
No, it's so funny. I always I was a huge Stephen King fan growing up, and I always romanticized writing in that way. My parents were very strict and didn't let me watch many movies at the time. So the road of being a screenwriter wasn't even one that I kind of considered. I didn't think it was a job that you could have. And then once I had been doing improv for many years, and it's like in waiting tables, of course, and going on like 2 auditions, I didn't ever seriously try to be an actor. After I moved to LA, I started writing sketch. And even though my parents were very strict about movies, I was a latchkey kid and The Simpsons raised me. So I've always had that like comedy inclination inside of me without even really knowing it. Um, so I performed at IO West before it's, now defunct for many, many years. When I
The
realized
one on
that
Franklin?
no,
No.
it was on Gower. It was Hollywood Boulevard, and between Gower and there was a little like alleyway. That
Okay.
wasn't
Okay.
Selma. Do you remember where Big Wings was?
Yes.
It was right down the street from that.
Gotcha.
It was the one with the bar. So UCB did not have a bar, and IO did, and so I decided to take classes at the one with the bar. Um, like you do when you're a 21-year-old who just moved to Hollywood. But I got a lot of great comedy training there. I started writing sketch. And then when my husband and I started dating, he was a TV writer already. And I was like, that's a job. And I met one of my best friends, Paul, who was an executive at VH1 at the time. And I had a sketch packet, and he was an executive on a sketch show there. And he gave my sketch packet to the creator of that show, and I got my first writing assistant job from that. So a very long-winded way of answering. Yes, I considered writing to be a medium that I loved and would like to pursue, but I thought the only way that you could do that was as a novelist. And then as I, became more and more entrenched in Los Angeles in the entertainment industry, I realized the different roads that can lead to that.
And I mean, and you said writing assistant, like it's not a big deal, but actually getting a writing the words writing assistant outside of the industry, I think is sometimes they think it's actually a really great job. It's a great starting job. In fact, I think every famous writer, not every, but that is the job to get to break in.
That's the thing. It's boot camp. I didn't go to college. I didn't take screenwriting classes in college, but I had a huge education in working in writers' rooms for 7 years. It's a hard job. It's a tough job to get. It's as hard as the showrunner is. I had some really tough showrunners. I had some really wonderful showrunners. Lennon Parham was a showrunner on Playing House, which is where I met Amy, and she's a mentor of mine to this day. But at the same time, this is getting into the weeds, but the assistant to staff writer pipeline is pretty much dry at this point. And I was experiencing that towards the end of being in writers' rooms. I was getting script writer or script coordinator, which is, for those not familiar, your writer's assistant, which is the lower level of the assistant in the writer's room. And then the script coordinator is the person who is also a writer's assistant, but they literally coordinate the scripts and get all the scripts together. Now, oftentimes those two jobs are combined. And, towards the end of working as a script coordinator, I was essentially a staff writer, but because the budgets were so tight, I was allowed to pitch, I was allowed to break story, I was allowed to do all the things that a staff writer would do, but I was making a quarter of what you would make as a staff writer. But all of that,
they wouldn't be able to put your name on one, right?
no.
Yeah.
Well, you can get a freelance script. There when shows had, 24 episode orders, you could get a Will and Grace script. My husband wrote a Will and Grace script as an assistant back in the day. And that could make your year, because you're making thousands more a year just with that script. But if there's a staff writer on staff who needs a script, it's not gonna, when you have a 10 episode order, it's not going to go to the writer's assistant,
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So towards the end of being script coordinator, I couldn't do it anymore. I was working, 14-hour days, and every show that I was on either got canceled or it was a showrunner that wouldn't promote from within. And the last show I worked on was the Heathers reboot on Paramount Plus that got burned off online because it was a violent show set in a high school. And they were like, oh, I hope there's not a school shooting. And it's like, we live where we live, so of course there's going to be.
They really read the room wrong on that, didn't they?
Yeah. So that got canceled, and I was just like, I've been trying to do this for 7 years. Like, what am I doing? I had written so many pilots. I was hooked up with a manager at that point through a writer on one of the shows, which is also a huge boon to having those jobs. You get introduced to people and you have those opportunities, which you wouldn't have otherwise. But I kind of threw my hands up and I was like, I'll try something else. And that something else was trying to write a feature. And that feature was the thing that got me my first agent. It was still 4 years before I sold anything, but that's how I ended up being a screenwriter.
Right. So you really went from script coordinator in TV, and you did not, if anything, it sounds like it inspired you to write more.
Yes. If I wasn't working, absolutely not. You're in the room watching these people do this job that you love so much and you want to be doing too. And it inspires you to get your own shit done, otherwise, what are you doing? At least that's how I approached it. If you want to get staffed, you have to write.
Yeah. And it eliminates the, the barrier where one thinks, oh, well, the people they must be so brilliant. Like, no, you got to see that, like, actually, they're not smarter than me. So
we're peers, and a lot of them were my age too. There were older rooms that I worked in that was all like higher level writers that came up in the golden age of the multicam sitcom. And then there were writers that were, in their mid to late 20s that got luckier than I did. That so much of it is luck and timing and all that stuff. A huge
amount. It's, yes, you need to be talented.
Yes.
But then you also need to be lucky.
Yes, exactly.
And I just have to throw a barb at the classic sitcom writing days, because I actually think the quality of writing is higher now.
I totally agree.
I think there were a lot of hacks back then. I know hacky writers who have big homes because they were on sitcoms we've heard of.
Oh, I worked for hacky writers who have big homes because they worked on Frasier and Roseanne and, all, and they have multiple homes because they made so much money back in the day and they worked year round. They didn't have to cobble together 10 episode orders over and over and over again, Yeah,
well, and they would whatever, get their name on 3 or 4 scripts of the 25 of that year.
Exactly.
And then Roseanne
they get the residuals.
To have syndication.
Yep.
There was ancillary markets fee. They were just getting checks for mediocre work they'd done the previous decade. I'm being very negative there. There was obviously a ton of brilliant people.
Yes.
But that's actually one of the interesting things about the era we're in, I think, is that, there used to be good and bad episodes of a show.
Right.
And now they only have 6 or 8 per season, and they all have to be great.
They have to be great. Otherwise, you're going to get canceled anyway. The show's
But
gonna
otherwise,
get
your
canceled
audience
anyway.
is just going to stop and watch the other thing on the streaming platform.
Churn, baby. You got to get that churn going. So, yeah,
So you were a part of all that. You were witnessing that firsthand. You were, I imagine, you're right. So it was like you were doing it for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
before you turned to feature writing.
Yes, and then I still worked on. I stopped script coordinating, but I would work on like a game show. Like I cobbled together some semblance of a career just to make money and pay our rent. But then eventually I wrote, I think it was the second feature I wrote was called Sugar Mama. And it went out to the town. I was repped at UTA and it landed with a thud and nobody wanted it. It was Pretty Woman with the Genders Reversed. And then
I was about to say, based on the title, I bet it was fantastic. And then it would eventually get to a guy in development who would go, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because exactly it was female centric, because it had a strong woman.
Yes. And it was a strong woman in her 50s who was still sexy, which is like people cannot fathom. When I pitched it at a general meeting once, just the concept, I was like, I'm tossing around this idea. At the time, I was calling it Fuckboy. Is it okay if I curse? I'm so sorry.
Of course.
Okay. And I was like, it's Pretty Woman, but with the genders reversed. And his response was, well, book club did pretty well. Book club, the women in book club are in their 70s. And I'm not saying a woman can't be sexy in their 70s too, but there's a big difference between a 50-something woman and a 70-something woman, you know? And that just, I think, is a testament to the way that women are looked at in our industry. It's after you hit a certain age, then you might as well all be the same age. But long story longer, that script eventually got to the right producer, who got it to the right actor, and it has been in development at Netflix for like 3 years now. But that was my first sale, and that's how.
Right. So you actually did get to sell that one.
Yes.
And there's probably been the thing that gets me is I'm sure there's been several women highly interested in that once they heard the premise.
Right.
And it just is about the pieces coming together.
That's just it. And I think I can. So Halle Berry's the actress. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. It hasn't been announced. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You could say tentatively Halle Berry is possibly attached.
I don't,
because you know how it is. Like you could find out tomorrow they're actually shooting it with somebody else. You never know, right?
You never know.
It's a revolving door.
And yes. And, Halle Berry's still sexy, maybe even sexier than she was in her 20s, like now. But she had to have a deal at Netflix and read the script at the right time for that to make sense for her to then say, yes, I want to do this. And for Netflix to say, okay, we'll pay you, unknown writer, to option your script. And, it's a whole different world.
Whole different world, yeah.
Yeah.
But then did that sale help you with more feature scripts?
The sale helped my agents in pitching me to get meetings. The thing that has helped me the most is, and I think it's when people told me this as a younger writer to just keep writing, I'm like, I roll, whatever. But truly, you just have to keep writing scripts because you get a meeting off of that little nugget. Oh, she set up a script at Netflix. Then when you're in that meeting, you better have something to pitch to that executive for them to then read. Because if you don't, you can pitch them an idea and they can say, oh, that sounds really cool. Send it to us when you write it. But what you really need is to pitch them an idea and say, I have this script, it's available. And then you send it to them and they say, this is great. And so, yes, I have a project at Village Roadshow, although Village Roadshow may not be a studio anymore. And after that got set up, then I feel like people have started taking me seriously as a writer. Like now that I have 2 projects set up, So then I could pitch on open writing assignments, and they know that I am a working, verified writer and would trust for me to be able to do that. So I've done an open writing assignment for Warner Brothers, and I'm working with this director, Brad Payton, on a couple projects. And I don't think those things would have been able to happen had I not had a studio kind of vouch for me, that's always the catch-22 of the industry, you know?
Yeah, you're until someone says you're good, no one else believes you're good.
Exactly.
Because they can't have their own opinion.
Not at all.
In fact, I can't help myself. I'm going to ask you a question, which is so leading, but I was just going to ask, because you talked about how you have to have things when you go in for that pitch, and something I don't want to share too much about myself, but like something I think I learned in the 90s was that you have to have at least 5+ feature screenplays done. And when you sit down, you have to name the best one fourth. Because they're going to say no 3 times just to show you who's boss. Mm-hmm. And then around the 4th pitch, they'll go like, well, you might have something there.
Right.
But if you start with your best idea, they go, okay, no, we have something like that.
They're not even listening.
To say no, right?
Right. They have to say no. And they're also not listening to you until the 3rd or 4th thing. You know, they're still thinking about the coffee that they're going to ask their assistant to get them at that moment. And then once you've talked enough and you all get kinds through.
Of stuff, but I've warned everyone. I'm so thanks to you, I will keep saying this to people, because it's like,
absolutely.
Yes, save the best one, not for last, but it's like second to last.
Yeah.
So then they can reject you one last time, so they're still asserting their authority.
I think you might have something with that other one that you're talking about.
Yeah, but I'll have to see it first. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. It is I'll just be extra bitter and say, and of course you're talking to someone who's never written anything in their life, and their uncle got them the job, and they're just in development because, and they're not an arbiter of taste at all. So they have to play this game.
Right. And they have to play this game, and they also are they're never going to show you, but they're very afraid that if they have an opinion, they will lose their job, because if their opinion is wrong, or a higher up says that their opinion's wrong, then they could be on the chopping block the next day. Oh my God, that's the coverage thing that all the writers used to talk about. Is that when you're writing coverage, you can't be too positive about it, because then if they read it and think it's bad, well, let's fire that person. And now you've lost your below minimum wage coverage writing gig. Oh my God, my first writer's assistant job, I think I was making $600 a week for like a 60-hour week. Like, you make no money to just, and taxes were coming out of it, so it was less than $6 an hour. It was $600 pre-tax. Yeah, painful. And that's the way. Yes, that is actually. Well, we are talking days after LA has been rocked by fires, and we were talking about the fires before we started recording, and like that is actually a meme I've seen going around a lot, which is like they keep showing like celebrities' homes that burn, and it's like, you don't get it. For every person in the entertainment industry who's killing it, it's not a pyramid, really. It's a needle. It's like there's 1,000%. Few people make money at the top, and then everyone else is barely middle class and just slugging away, just doing it for the love of it. Absolutely. And middle class in LA is very different than middle class other places in the country. Everybody's like, oh, they're $1 million homes. Well, $1 million home is a 900 square foot 2-bedroom, 1 bath in the valley. Like $1 million home isn't these Palisades homes. $1 million home in Altadena is a teeny tiny box that they probably bought decades ago. The house that we rented, I live in New Jersey now. We left about 2 years ago because my husband's also a writer, and it's so expensive to have children in LA, and neither of us had in-person meetings for 3 years. So we're like, we'll go to New Jersey. We're right outside the city. Maybe we can buy a house really, you're among the people who, once COVID hit and proved to everyone
that this type of community, that Zoom is as good as an in-person meeting. All of a
Yeah.
sudden you had no more in-persons,
Hmm.
and you were about to start a family, or you had just started a family, apparently. Yeah, because you have a
I had
4-year-old.
Lincoln. Yeah, I had
Well, you had a
Lincoln.
COVID baby.
I had a COVID baby. He is a pure COVID baby. He was May of 2020.
Oh shit. Right. So
Yeah.
you were pregnant, and then you found out, oh man, now I don't even get grandparents coming in to help.
Yeah. My mom is a labor and delivery nurse, and she was supposed to be in the room with me, and she couldn't come.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy. I will say though, because my husband and I are both such workhorses, we would have gone back to the gauntlet probably immediately, not immediately, but very shortly after Lincoln was born. And because we really didn't have a choice that we couldn't, we were with him his whole first year of life and saw every little thing. And that was a very, very big silver lining to all the devastation that COVID brought. And the other silver lining is that I can still work and do what I love from, New Jersey, a little shore town in New Jersey, go to LA to visit friends and family and take some meetings twice a year. And I've never been busier.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
As long as you are available on Zoom,
yeah,
and it's when it's 5 p.m. here and it's after dinner for you. Yeah, as long as you don't make an issue of the time difference,
no,
they don't even know or care.
not at all.
Heck,
Not
I'm
at
looking
all.
at you on Zoom right now, and that living room or wherever you are,
This could be
that could
LA.
pass for anywhere in LA.
Yeah.
I even see the fire or the recessed lighting and fire extinguisher. Come on,
Come
there's
on.
no it's truly a global world now.
This is all my set dressing paying off.
Well, so that's wait. So we jumped all over the
We're
place. We're really
jumping everywhere.
it's your improv background.
I know a lot of yes anding myself.
But and now I'll say but instead of yes and no, so right. So the feature success or what was happening, and then so Talia came about. So had you directed before Talia?
So once I had set up the feature at Netflix, I wanted to then, and not that I made a ton of money, I didn't. I made enough to survive, but it was the first time in my career that I had some money to kind of invest back into myself. So I said I want to direct a short because also in features, in TV, the writer's king, and features, the director's king. And you don't mean shit as a writer. And so I want to eventually be able to direct my own things that go to studios if I'm lucky enough. And so I knew that I needed to start doing that. So I produced, wrote, and directed the first short that Amy and I did together. And
Right, Playdate, which was your
Playdate, yeah, which was Lincoln's
a fun. By the way, it
debut.
does seem like you have a leaning towards dark comedy.
I do, for sure. I think it's just my sensibility.
I think it's a better sense of humor. I mean,
I would agree,
I
but
think this is I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. I think smart people have to turn to dark humor.
I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own ass either, but I agree. And I think that most people, because of the reality of the world that we live in and we have to laugh, otherwise we'll all cry all the time. I think a lot of people are drawn to that, like I love a pratfall like the next person, but I like a joke at a funeral more,
Yeah, it's a family survives an apocalypse, but that
Exactly.
kid really needs another kid to play with,
Yeah.
or the
You don't
parents
want him to
will
be a
eventually
lonely
go
weirdo.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, a toddler in a bunker is enough to make you want to go into a desolate wasteland.
Did you write you wrote that post COVID?
Yeah, it
Post.
was inspired by having a COVID baby.
It's a very nice allegory.
Thank you. I did look at Lincoln at one point when he was like 9 months old and the vaccines were not out yet. And I was just like, what if he never has a friend? What if he never has a friend? What if this little baby just is alone forever? Obviously, that wasn't the reality of the world we lived in, but that was the little spark that made the short, and I wrote a feature as well.
A feature version of Playdate, or just
yes, a feature version of Playdate. And then so Amy really wanted to do a Talia piece as well, but as I explained before, I'm not a drama writer, and I really didn't trust that I could do that story justice in the way that it deserved as a non-comedy, as a non-drama writer. And so another Hoosier she met through friends, Joe Golk, he is lovely and a great drama writer. They workshopped it together, and he wrote it, and then she had me direct it because we work very well as a directing acting duo. And we produced this one together because I was like, I am not producing this on my own because that shit is very stressful. And yeah, so that's how it came to be.
And did you shoot it? Where did you all shoot it?
We shot it in Agora Hills at Amy's parents' house.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had moved to New Jersey at that point, but I came back in January of 23 to come and do it.
Right,
it was a great excuse
and
to
it was,
to LA too.
It was a smart move, I think, on Amy's behalf, because the way you all had it written, the way Joe wrote it, basically one room, and not a massive swing that's going to bankrupt people and leave them wondering where they're going to eat next.
Exactly, and even so, we crowdfunded. I think we crowdfunded about $15K. And spent every single dollar of that $15K plus some. It's very expensive, especially to shoot in LA. Not to say that production shouldn't be in LA. Production should be in LA.
Well, and I would assume that an addendum to what you just said is that because you and Amy have both worked in the industry, you want to do things right. And even if friends were doing you favors,
yes,
obviously to get to that number, I'm assuming that you were not breaking rules and dissing unions and things.
No, not at all. And we also, we rented from a big camera house our DP works with all the time. We got all the insurance that you need in order to do camera rentals. We did the SAG low budget waivers. We did all the things. We checked all the boxes. And yeah. When you do that, it costs a lot of money. There are definitely ways to do things much less expensive. But I'm also not a technical director. There are directors who know camera lenses. They know the type of camera you're shooting on, all the framing, all those things. And I am not that. I am an emotional director. I feel like I talk to the cast. I connect with the cast. And I am lucky enough to have been introduced to our DP, Alexa, and she is phenomenal and knows all that stuff. And so she makes it possible for me to say, I'm thinking, can we do one where they're laying on the bed and there's a camera up here, and she is able to pull it off,
Which every director needs. Heck, I was at a Q&A once where Harold Ramis said those exact words. He was like, was it Caddyshack? I forget what it was, but he basically said, can we shoot this way? And like his DP pulled him over and goes, that direction will work better. And you go, okay, everyone, we're going that direction.
Yep. Yeah, you got to know what you know and know what you don't know, and hire people who are better at it than you are.
Yeah, and if you're focused on the storytelling and the performances, that's what makes a film come out well.
Yeah.
And if you put in the right department heads, in this case, even on a short, you had your camera department, you had a DP you could trust, that's huge.
Yeah. Also, what I learned from Playdate is hire a sound mixer that knows what they're doing, which we did on Talia. Because if you don't pay for it on set, you're going to pay for it in post. Because nothing takes you out of a film more than shitty sound.
Shitty sound, and then not to ever throw, I would... ADR, looping dialogue, is a skill that I can't believe some professionals do it as well as they do. But asking younger, newer actors who are working at the indie short level to do ADR, I don't know if I've ever seen good ADR in an indie short because
Yeah.
it's impossible.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I learn every day is that there are all of these departments and department heads and the people working under them to learn these crafts because they are hard, and they are to have somebody that does it well is a huge difference than someone who's just like, yeah, I could do it. Why would it be hard? How could it be hard? How could it be that difficult? It makes a huge difference when you
Huge
have somebody who
difference.
knows what they're doing.
And amusingly, even if you were out in Agura, you don't know how many planes are going overhead in a
Uh-huh.
city until you start recording sound, and then you realize, is there ever a time when there's not a plane overhead?
The answer is no.
Isn't it wild?
Yeah.
I haven't been involved in this kind of thing for like 30 years, and I still have horrible memories of like squeezing shit in between flights.
Yeah.
You're like, we're not even in a
Hold for
flight path. What the
planes.
fuck is going on?
Yeah. Planes everywhere, man.
Everywhere. I know. People got to get around.
I know. Those
Pollute
people,
the
what are they
air.
doing?
Right, so
Right?
Talia, so I assume Talia was because it was sort of started by friendship in a way, right? Because you and Amy had already bonded on a show and whatnot. So you it was just a great experience for everyone.
I think so. I think it was a great experience for many reasons. A, because it was such a labor of love for everybody there. I love Amy so deeply, and to pull this off for her was really important to me. Also, shooting it in Amy's parents' house. The Shaughnessy family is a very special family. Her two sisters and mom cooked meals for the whole crew. By the end, we shot over the course of 2 days, and by the end of the 2 days, everybody was just like you so bonded because the Shaughnessy's are just they lead with love, and if you're not having a good time, then they're going to make you have a good time. So it was just, it. I didn't know that a film about grief could be so much fun. But even though we were crying half the time, everybody had a really, really nice experience.
It was yeah. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. I guess we don't really have to worry about spoilers because you're
Yeah,
sharing it's about grief and everything. But yeah, it's intense. It's intense
yeah.
because the you I'm sharing the fact that I'm aware that Amy's parents also knew Talia, obviously,
Yes.
because they were
Okay.
college roommates.
Yes.
And so the meaningfulness of it just must have been off the charts
Off
for
the charts
everyone.
because it was also things that Amy wished she could say to her now, the full story. So Talia is also from Indiana. So it's a bunch of Hoosiers getting together, and Amy's mom was originally from Indiana. Um, to make this film about this very special young woman who lost her life. She got hit by a car when she was on her bike over the summer home from New York University.
Hit by a
And
drunk driver, right?
yeah. So, her sisters knew Talia, her mom and dad knew Talia. Amy is still very close to Talia's parents. So it wasn't just Amy that this was kind of cathartic for as well. Everyone involved really just wanted it to be a great experience.
And it's I mean it's a lovely story, it's a lovely script, it's a lovely film. And I don't know
Thank
if
you.
Amy told you this, but I think I revealed it at the Q&A. I think that I had a best friend of nearly 40 years pass, so I know what it's like.
I'm so
You know
sorry.
that and that time actually is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Time after their passing, it's a weird thing, but but as a festival runner and as someone on festival juries, a lot of people make grief films, and a lot of
Hmm.
people know that death is a dramatic thing. And for me, I can tell within 2-3 minutes if they're full of shit and and have no idea what it's like to lose someone you don't expect, right? Like losing grandparents. I don't mean to be insensitive, but
it's different.
Losing my grandparents, losing a parent, nothing compared to losing someone my age who I expected another 30, 40 years with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a different beast. And honestly, Talia, I mean, college age.
Yeah, she was 17. 17 years old.
At least my friend made it
she was 19.
19. But yeah, I mean, whatever. Not to see now I can laugh about it. But my friend at least made it to 52. Actually, no, he didn't. He was 51. But I met him when we were 13, so.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I know. Once you make it through puberty and shit, and you've been through middle school, high school, college, and then life, you're like, that's one of your forever peeps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Talia would have been a forever peep for Amy. And so it is. So anyway, that's just my way of complimenting the whole.
That is.
The whole community around this film, all the creatives like yourselves, as well as everyone who worked on it. The sincerity and authenticity carry through.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And it's so odd. It feels odd to say that's the biggest compliment because it comes from such a place of heartbreak, but to come from someone who experienced such a tragic loss, it's a huge compliment to hear that we were able to kind of hit that chord.
I even think, okay, I can't be sure, but I bet if I rewatched the Q&A footage with Amy, I might have turned to the audience and said, yeah, none of you want to talk about it.
Right.
Only people like Amy and I started talking about it. And then we looked at, we're aware that you don't want us to talk about death.
Right.
But we know.
But all you want to do is talk about it.
All you want to do is talk about it. All you want to do is say, oh, there's finally someone else who gets it. Because in American culture, you're supposed to pretend everyone is immortal. Has nothing to worry about.
We're not going to die.
And the truth is,
this happens to other people.
The truth is, your own death doesn't mean a goddamn thing. It's about the people you love. And
my husband and I always, one of our ongoing bits is who dies first. And
it's a race.
Yeah, I told him that I have to die first
because I've told mine the same.
I cannot see him die. And I'm a former smoker and he's not, so I probably have. But he's 6 years older than me, so, anyway.
It kind of balances out. It's tough. It's tricky.
Yeah.
We have the same joke and the same. And then she's like, well, my mom died young and yours is still around. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm male and I'm 4 years older. And, we're both cancer survivors, so it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had cancer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, cancer films are another one I sniff out if they're not off. Oh my God.
I bet that's even more egregious.
Oh my God. I've actually had an email exchange with an alumnus who sent in a cancer film. And I responded to her and I said, hey, you directed this and I see someone else got credit for writing. And I'm just going to say it. That writer doesn't know anyone who's had cancer. And she said, you're right. He was just, he just wanted to write. He thought he'd grab people with the cancer story. And I'm like, it's completely full of shit. And it's an insult to anyone who's been through it. And needless to say, I'm not giving it a good rating. but I'm like, by the way, you did a great job directing,
But you can't direct something into authenticity. If it's if it's inauthentic on the page, it's not going to be made authentic by the direction, in my opinion.
And it's funny because I am very open to, you could direct you could direct a film with a male lead and get the
Hmm.
perspectives right if you're really dedicated to it. But I think
Right.
it is another argument for write what you know.
Agreed.
They and these. Well, now I'm just sounding like a whiny festival programmer, but the number of dudes who are submitting films where you can tell they wrote a script and then they just switch the gender to a female lead.
Uh-huh.
And as you're
Yeah.
watching it, I'm like, because I have a rule where I don't read any of the stuff on Film Freeway about the film. I just hit play and it's up to the filmmaker to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife watches a lot with me at night, and I'll like say 2-3 minutes into a film, I'm like, all right, I have to look. The words in this lead actor's mouth were written by a man, and it's a woman, and this is just not where I'm like, do you think I'm right? And she'll be like, I think so. And then we're always right because
Yeah.
you
You can
know
tell.
you well you can tell if they didn't take the time, but lots of
Yes.
lots of
Yes.
writers take the time and get it right, and they write for either a different culture or a different gender or a different something.
Mm-hmm.
But they did take the time. Whereas if you're just doing it because it's in,
Right.
or
Because
if you think white males are out,
right.
so I'm not going to
Guys,
have
we're
a
doing
white
air
male
quotes.
lead.
Nobody can see the air quotes. But yes,
Yes.
I totally agree. Well, it's it'll have a better chance if it's a woman. So Mark's going to be Michelle, and I'm going to do find and replace, and that's going to be that.
And when the festival runners don't give a shit, then it does
Yeah.
get in for that reason.
Right.
This is what happens. We give a shit, and I give a shit. So that
Well, you guys run a
shit
great
don't fly.
festival. Yeah.
That don't fly. Well, so what is So I was going to ask the what is next for you kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think you've kind of answered it.
I think I did. In my ramblings earlier. Yeah.
I mean, you were quite focused on. Are you? Let me. Are you really focused on directing a feature, or you just want to have that as a possibility if you hit a moment where there's an opportunity and you can show, hey, look, I've got 2 shorts behind me.
I, you know, it's hard to answer that because anytime I talk to, I have some really wonderful reps. It took me a long time to find some great reps, but and they know that my eventual goal is to write and direct my own stuff. Just like my path to being a screenwriter has been a long and winding one that I couldn't tell you how I got from A to B really. I feel like my directing journey is going to be the same because I'm told currently that I need to have, unless I'm going to fund it myself, which I don't have the time or money to, crowdsource and all that stuff because right now I'm just trying to make a living as a creative, which is
And
a
you
job
have
within
2
itself.
children
And I have
too.
2 small children.
So if you had the wherewithal to fund a film while
Yeah.
raising 2 small kids, then yeah, we should sample your DNA and
Seriously.
save it, like, and freeze it. Like, we should freeze
Yeah.
freeze every egg you've got because
Send
there's
it to
something there that no
space.
one else has.
Yeah. So ideally, I think what would be wonderful is I would love for one of my projects to get greenlit, to be able to be on set with the director of said project, whichever one that is, learn, and then, like we were saying before, nobody's going to take a chance on you unless people tell them that you should have a chance being taken on you. So I think potentially financiers or studios would be more likely to kind of take a chance on me. And in the meantime, I'd like to do another short. I think I have to not be breastfeeding when that happens, though. So my baby needs to be weaned before I can take on another
That
short.
is an extra challenge. I can just I'm revealing too much knowledge, I guess. Well, no, I'm fine being knowledgeable. Like yeah, you wouldn't, even if you had everything set up at home, eventually you would be in so much pain if you couldn't take time out to pump.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
Actually,
lot of considerations. It's not just feeding the kid.
I mean, I've taken the ferry into the city, New York City, a couple times in the last couple months for some work meetings, and just the sheer logistics of knowing when I'm going to be able to pump. And I have a wireless pump on the ferry, in a restaurant, at a coffee shop, whatever. That alone is impossible. So to also run a set while doing that feels it's just a challenge that I'm not up for at the moment, which I have to say, Lennon Parham, who I have mentioned before, one of the co-creators of Playing House, I think her son Kai was 3 months old when we went into production, 2 or 3 months old, and she was breastfeeding, directing, and pumping. And she would have a cover up on and a hand pump. Oh, and acting. She's in the show. And would be hand pumping, hand expressing this little hand pump. And she's like, I have really strong hands because I played percussion. And she would just be watching the monitor while pumping her breasts. And at the time I was like, yeah, she's doing it, whatever. And in hindsight, as now a working mother, I'm like, I have no idea. She had so much grit to pull that off. It's pretty phenomenal.
That is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I don't know if you were too busy out in New Jersey, but I don't know if you got to watch any of the virtual screenings we had associated with the festival.
I could not, because I was giving birth and I was very sad to.
Oh yeah, that totally checks out. There was actually, I probably have the wrong festival, but there was actually, oh my God, now I had the title in my head and I didn't, but Baby Something. We had a film in December called Baby Something from Ghana, and the writer director, it was her and her newborn in the film, and it was, I think, a 4 or 5 minute film about how there was no bullshit.
That's amazing.
It was about how
I would love to check it
fucking
out.
difficult those first couple months are.
Man.
And she had a supportive, loving husband who was there, and she still felt unsupported and just struggling. And it was a powerful film.
I feel like that's exactly the kind of films that need to. I mean, I feel like the conversation behind motherhood and parenthood has expanded recently. But even with my second, I already had a kid, and I struggled a lot the first couple months after Monty was born. And I have also a very supportive husband who is, a 50-50 parent completely, takes care of the house, takes care of the kids, all that stuff. But that shit is hard. The hormones, the breastfeeding, if you choose to breastfeed, all, not sleeping. It's so hard. The anxiety, the depression, all that stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been way too much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to name where people can follow you and your work, whether it's a website or... I understand no one has websites anymore.
I was just thinking, should I make a website?
No, there's no need. Although I don't even want to bring it up, but right now everyone's thinking about quitting Instagram and Facebook. But
I know. So you can find Talia Film on Instagram. That's where you can find the film. I have a personal Instagram that's just my children and it's private, which is why I'm like, I should probably have a website so people can follow along. But any other, film related news will be on the Talia Film Instagram.
Well, and you're probably better off not having an Instagram for you as a writer director, because then Hollywood assholes will look at it and go, oh, there's not enough followers.
Exactly. I am content with my 600 followers. I'm content with not, and you know how the industry is. It's hard to get excited about something and put it out there, and then it kind of, nothing happened with it potentially. So when it comes to, especially my writing career, I just kind of speak softly and carry a MacBook.
Man. Holy shit. That's a really good t-shirt.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, no, I mean, you if you go on one of them websites to create the shirt, let me know and I'll order one. I'm not stealing it. I won't steal it. Speak softly and carry a MacBook.
Carry a MacBook.
Oh, man.
I've never said it before. Yeah. They really should. But then that doesn't really...
You'll end up in advertising. No, they need... they're so tight with Hollywood anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, well I'll do my closing spiel to get us out of here.
All righty.
First, I'll thank you, Lindsay Harbert. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
And for everyone. Oh, is there somewhere? Where can people watch Talia right now? Is it online yet?
It's still private on Vimeo. Amy and I are going to make it public once the fires have died down. So
understood. Well, when that happens, feel free to send me an email with a link. So I'll put it in the show notes. So in the show notes of this podcast will be the Talia Film Instagram link, and then eventually where people can watch it, because that will also be in the bio of the Talia Film Instagram. Oh, of course, yeah. And thank you everyone for listening. Like and subscribe and do shit like that. Even write a nice review if you want. If you want to learn more about this podcast or a TV series that was born from it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFwins. And we talked about how Talia, the film, won an award at Film Invasion Los Angeles. We hold that sucker every June. In fact, this June is the 10th edition, 10th anniversary, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know what we're going to do for that, but it's going to have to be special. That's something, right? Year 10. Huge. Yeah. Year 10. So go to filminvasionla.com if you want to learn more, or at filminvasionla on social media. It does have a sister festival every December called the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. And look at this. There's two people who've lived in Sherman Oaks on Zoom. So that one's every December, and you can learn more at ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. Both of them festivals are in the top 100 best reviewed list of Film Freeway, because as I like to joke, our t-shirts, you can make your MacBook t-shirt. Our t-shirts one day just might say the festivals that give a shit.
Love it.
Everyone likes it. And then, then I chicken out when it comes time to order shirts. But anyway, and then the last thing is, if you appreciate indie film, check out a website called indiechannel.tv. There's interesting stuff there. All right. Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. This was a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.